Good evening, everybody. My name is John Hughes. I'm the music director of Chicago Master Singers. Welcome to another session of CMS University. I'm glad you're here, and I hope that each one of you feels that you are a welcomed member of our community. One of the ways that we're fostering this sense of togetherness, even though we're still physically apart, is through the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen. So first, take a minute. Make sure you're logged into your YouTube account, and then you can join the conversation. You can even ask me a question throughout the evening, and I will put them up on the screen and try and answer them to the best of my ability. I just ask that anything intended for me starts with a few question marks in a row so I quickly can see what is for me. Our topic for tonight is one that I think is really interesting, and I hope you will too. And we're going to be looking at 4 ensembles that I have identified as being U.S. choral legacy ensembles. Now, there are many other groups that would fit this category, but the 4 I chose for a specific reason. The first, and they're listed here, the first kind of thing that I was thinking about is I wanted each one to be different. So the Handel and Haydn Society is kind of a large oratorio group focused on Baroque and classical music. The Tabernacle Choir is focused on sacred music. It's a faith-based ensemble. The St. Olaf Choir is a collegiate ensemble. And then Chanticleer is a professional ensemble. Along with those kind of different expressions of choral music, I wanted to have some geographical diversity too. So you'll notice the East Coast, the Midwest, Salt Lake, and then California. So again, I'm trying to just show how many different forms choral music making can take on, and how rich and diverse of a tradition we have in our country. I think it's really remarkable. So we're going to be exploring each of these ensembles, a little bit of their history, why they're so important, their musical accomplishments, some aspects of their leadership structure, and we'll listen to a performance by each of these groups as well. So it should be a fun way to spend a little under an hour together this evening. So let's start by talking about that Handel and Haydn Society. Now this is often abbreviated to H&H. It's a very old group, founded in Boston in 1815. It's one of the very oldest musical organizations in our country. In fact, next season, 2021 through 2022, will be its 206th consecutive season, which is really amazing. Now, for many, many, many years, this group was a large community-based ensemble of dedicated amateurs. And recently, toward the second half of the 20th century, it became fully professional. But its roots are in kind of the large community oratorio society model. Now, its focus is really on Baroque and classical Western music, but recently it has really delved into the historically informed performance practice trend that happened in the 1970s and continues today. This is when we will see in our recording tonight period instruments. We'll see smaller ensembles depending on the specific piece, and again, trying to imagine what a composer like Bach would have heard during his lifetime and recreating that today. So that's kind of their musical focus. Now, this is a very important ensemble in the life of our country. During the Civil War, they gave benefit concerts to raise money for the Union troops, and actually, Handel and Haydn Society member wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which I found to be really interesting. On New Year's Day of 1863, they gave a performance, or they performed at this Grand Jubilee concert, celebrating the enactment of the Emancipation Proclamation. And they kind of commemorate this every year. They give a kind of a community concert on New Year's Eve every year, December 31st, in coordination with the Museum of African American History in Boston. So they're kind of recognizing their contribution to the Civil War movement and the emancipation movement. They also performed at the memorial service for President Lincoln after he had been assassinated. Now, musically, they are obviously quite important. Not only are they the oldest ongoing musical organization in our country, but they have given the premieres, the U.S. premieres of the following pieces. And these are not small pieces. Handel's Messiah, Haydn's The Creation, Verdi's Requiem, and the Bach St. Matthew Passion. So incredible pieces that they really brought into our country. And I read actually when I was preparing for this that the year before they premiered the full Messiah in 1818. The year before that, 1817, they gave the U.S. premiere of the Hallelujah Chorus. So just a really important ensemble for bringing the great choral tradition from Europe to the United States. Now, just some recent music directors here that I think kind of demonstrate the direction that Handel and Haydn has gone recently. Thomas Dunn is really the one who professionalized the ensemble and turned it away from amateur singing to professional singing, which is one tact. I'm not advocating for that by any means, so don't worry. But he's also really important because he brought this performance practice interest to the Handel and Haydn Society. That was then carried on by Christopher Hogwood. He was a real expert on performance practice. He actually also founded the Academy of Ancient Music in the UK. So that was really his expertise, and he really brought that to Boston and elevated what they were doing. The current music director, Harry Christophers, is actually set to retire this season, but he's another Brit. He is the founding artistic director of the 16, probably my favorite ensemble. So they have tremendous musical leadership, and you'll see kind of their interest in performance practice evidenced in the recording we're going to listen to tonight, which is the first movement of Monteverdi's 1610 Vespers, the first movement being the Domine ad adjuvandum me. If you don't know the Monteverdi Vespers, I should have done a whole session on that because it's a really remarkable piece. But basically, Monteverdi wrote it as an audition piece for becoming the Maestro di Cappella of San Marco in Venice. And he wrote it specifically for that space, using the opposing balconies in this cori spizzati, this split choir, antiphonal choir, and using that architecture for the music. Now, interestingly, in this recording we're going to listen to of this movement by the Handel and Haydn Society, they're actually performing in a very different space. They're performing at the Met Museum of Art in Manhattan. And you'll notice it's a very small ensemble with period instruments. And they obviously will do much bigger choruses when the work calls for it. But again, this performance demonstrates kind of their ideal of recreating music how it would have been performed. So even though they don't go to San Marco to perform it, you get a sense of what they're going for in this piece. I hope you enjoy it. That's definitely one of my bucket list pieces, and it's very diverse. So I hope if you don't know that piece, go find a good recording and listen to it, because every movement of it is so different. Okay, the next ensemble that we're going to talk about this evening is the Tabernacle Choir. Now, until fairly recently, 2018, you might have known this as the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. They dropped the word Mormon from their name. I think they felt like that better aligned with the policy of the LDS Church. And the Tabernacle Choir really functions as a musical ambassador for the LDS Church, and that really influences the type of music they sing. Now, they are unique not only in their size, they have 360 members, but also in that they perform frequently with organ. They have 5 organists on their staff, as well as with an orchestra. Now, you might think, well, CMS performs with an orchestra a lot. Well, that's true, but I think what makes the Tabernacle Choir unique is that they are performing shorter works, maybe 5-minute works, with orchestra. So they're doing these big, fully orchestrated anthems every week. And they also do the large-scale works occasionally. But I think that the scale with which the Tabernacle Choir sings anthems is really distinctive. Now, they're a very historic group. 29 days after the pioneers settled in the Salt Lake Valley, they founded the Tabernacle Choir. So this is one of the very first things they did before they even really finished building homes and everything, was that choir. So it's really elemental to the LDS culture and society. As I mentioned today, the Tabernacle Choir has 360 members, and it's quite a rigorous process to be accepted into the choir. You can see the audition policy there, very extensive. Don't worry, it's not giving me too many ideas about future auditions for CMS. But there's a time limit that you can be in the group. I think there's a mandatory retirement age. You have to be within a certain geographical radius of Salt Lake City. So it's very, very regimented. But there's a huge demand to be in the ensemble, so I guess they can support it. Now, musically, they are a very well-known group. They have recorded over 200 separate albums, 2 of which have gone platinum. They've won Grammys and Emmys. They do a lot of TV programs as well, so that's where the Emmys come in. They've performed in very prestigious things, including for 10 United States presidents. They've also been touring since the late 19th century. So again, this is a huge scale that they operate on, not only in terms of their numbers and size, but also in terms of what they do. The number of concerts, the types of concerts, the number of performances is really quite big. Now, we're going to talk about 2 of their conductors here. Craig Jessup retired from the choir in 2008 and went back to teaching at the collegiate level, where I believe he's still teaching at Utah State University. He also crisscrosses the United States every year, doing all states and other guest conducting. He's in Carnegie Hall at least once a year, so he's pretty well known and a renowned conductor. Mac Wilberg is the current conductor of the Tabernacle Choir, and some of you may recognize his name. He's a very prolific composer and arranger, not only from his time with the Tabernacle Choir, but before he joined the Tabernacle Choir, he was the director of choral activities at Brigham Young University. And for Brigham Young and also for the Tabernacle Choir, he's written dozens and dozens of pieces, arrangements, and newly composed works that then are performed by his groups and then get published and get picked up by lots of church choirs, community choirs. So his name might be familiar to those of you who have participated in our most recent virtual choir piece. Now, what we're going to listen to is actually a Mac Wilberg arrangement of the great tune, "O God, Our Help in Ages Past." And the reason I picked this particular piece performed by the Tabernacle Choir is that it's a shorter work. It's about 4 minutes long, but it's performed with a huge orchestra. And again, when you just think about the size, 360 singers and maybe 70 people in the orchestra, it's a humongous ensemble. And you'll notice in the video how far the conductor is from everybody. And it's really only the Tabernacle Choir can do anthems like this regularly at this scale. So I hope you enjoy this great Mac Wilberg arrangement. What a glorious thing. And I agree with you, Dan, how much fun it must be to be in the middle of that. I just glanced at the other questions for me in the chat regarding the violin player in the Monteverdi performance. It is typical for early music groups for people to be standing. I think they just like that, and that's kind of a trend. I don't know of a very specific musical reason for that, other than they just prefer it. In terms of breathing at commas, I think that's kind of an outdated rule, and it's really just whatever the conductor wants in terms of phrasing, that's what should happen. So the commas, that's a language thing that shouldn't necessarily impact musical decisions, although it could play into it. All right, our next ensemble that we're going to talk about is the St. Olaf Choir, founded in 1912, almost 110 years ago now. And their focus is on singing unaccompanied music from memory. They do other types of music, but what they're really known for is their tour programs, kind of in January, when they go out for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, performing every night unaccompanied music, although sometimes they bring a small string quartet with them. I would just add that they are also very well known for their purple robes and holding hands and swaying while they sing. and you'll see that when we listen to their performance tonight. Now, they're a very important choir in terms of the collegiate world. They really established the Lutheran college tradition in this country, and particularly those institutions with Scandinavian roots. And the people that have gone through that program have then gone out to become conductors themselves of other ensembles and kind of spread this mission. So it's not just people who went to St. Olaf anymore at this point, it's people who went to those types of undergraduate colleges. And you can see this influence lots of other institutions continuing today, but even many years ago when other institutions were establishing their choral programs. So you see it at Concordia College with Paul Christiansen, who is one of the sons of the founder of the St. Olaf Choir, Ethmelius Christiansen. Morton Luvas at Allegheny, Weston Noble at Luther, Henry Velt at Augustana. These are all people who looked to St. Olaf for inspiration for their own collegiate choral programs. And again, it very much is centered on the undergraduate residential touring choir program. So not every college looks to St. Olaf, but many do of this ilk. Now, musically, they're very accomplished. They've embarked on 15 international tours. They go basically about every 4 years. And their first international tour was the year after they were founded, 1913. They went to Norway for a month. And that must have been quite the feat. They took an ocean liner there and toured all throughout Norway. And you can imagine, people didn't do that very often in 1913, and especially to do it at only a year old really demonstrates kind of the ambition and the seriousness of choral music at St. Olaf. They have produced 27 recordings, and there's kind of urban legends about how important their tour program is to music sales. So let's take, for example, the great Renaissance motet, Sicut Cervus by Palestrina. That could have very well been on a St. Olaf choir program in the 40s, right? Long before the internet age, when everyone could easily see what music is out there, what other people are doing, right? Conductors like myself today, we are always keeping tabs on what other groups are doing. That wasn't possible in the 1940s, though. So let's say then you go to a St. Olaf choir program and they are doing Sicut Cervus, then the other conductors like myself might then say, oh, I should do Sicut Cervus. Now, that's a great piece. I love that piece. But there are many other pieces by Palestrina. And what people have kind of demonstrated in some scholarship is that some of the pieces that we know the best in the United States, like Sicut Cervus, actually their popularity is rooted in the fact that at one point they were on a St. Olaf choir tour program. And so I think that's kind of an interesting thing to think about why is that the most famous Palestrina motet? Well, it might have something to do with a really famous choir singing it and kind of a lack of information about what else is out there. But thankfully, we live in the internet age and can find thousands of other Renaissance motets too. There have only been 4 conductors of the St. Olaf choir. The first one being Ethmelius Christiansen, a immigrant from Norway who came to St. Olaf to establish the music department and the choir there specifically. The conductor, and each of these following conductors, Olaf Christiansen, Kenneth Jennings, and Anton Armstrong, has each been a pupil of the predecessor. So after Ethmelius Christiansen, it went to Olaf Christiansen, and I believe there might have been some overlap in there. And then it moved on to Kenneth Jennings, not from Jeopardy, a different one. And then the current conductor is Anton Armstrong. Now, each of these conductors, like all of us, have brought something different to the ensemble. Ethmelius Christiansen established it, kind of developed its signature tone, and wrote many arrangements for the ensemble, but they tend to be very much hymn-based. So his Praise to the Lord the Almighty is a great arrangement that kind of typifies his style. Olaf Christiansen was also an arranger and composer, wrote many, many pieces, and expanded the choir's repertoire a little bit by including some folk tunes on their tour program. Kenneth Jennings did the same things. He expanded their repertoire to include choral orchestral works. So they started doing some more large-scale oratorios at St. Olaf, and also expanded their a cappella tradition and really made sure that that was sound. He also was a composer and arranger in addition. Current conductor, Anton Armstrong, is the only one who isn't a composer or arranger, although he does have his own publishing series. So he is helping produce new pieces of music. But he has really expanded their repertoire to include non-Western pieces, in addition to upholding their tradition. Now, the piece that we're going to listen to by St. Olaf is an arrangement of the great hymn, What Wondrous Love. This is arranged by Robert Schultz, who recently died, so I'm playing this in part to honor him. But he was a St. Olaf graduate and taught at St. Olaf for many, many years as a choral faculty member, just not conducting the St. Olaf choir. So I hope you enjoyed this beautiful performance of What Wondrous Love. This was recorded in Bow Memorial Chapel at St. Olaf. Lovely performance, right? Someone asked in the chat about the swain. I think that's just, they have long held hands, but I think that just not being rigid and being connected to each other and feeling free to move and athletic helps produce a freer tone. So that's probably my best guess. I think it's a good thing in general, as long as it doesn't get too distracting. Our final group that we're going to talk about tonight is the great California professional choir, Chanticleer, kind of known as the reigning male chorus and, of course, an orchestra of voices. This is a very famous group that is really, really unique. It was founded in 1979 by Louis Botto, and originally with 9 members, but today they sing with 12. Now there's kind of an interesting story about their name, Chanticleer. This comes from the Canterbury Tales, the clear singing rooster, and that's what the name really means, right? Chant or chant, meaning to sing in French, and clear meaning clear, so clear singing. Not only does this obviously describe how they sing, but the fact that it's a nod to the Canterbury Tales demonstrates that their original focus was really on medieval and Renaissance polyphony. Now, since then, they have continued that tradition of singing a lot of medieval and Renaissance music, but they also sing all types of music, including some jazz, some popular music, and just other new music. So they do all kinds of music, and they do it all incredibly, incredibly well. The historical importance of Chanticleer is really important in our country. We have professional orchestras all over this country, but there aren't as many professional choirs for whatever reason. But Chanticleer really changed that. They were really one of the first ones in our country. Since 1991, all of the singers in Chanticleer have been full-time salaried employees. And this has then enabled them to grow. And it's actually engendered other professional choirs. And I've listed some here. I'm sure I've omitted many. But these are some of my favorites, and I hope you'll check them out if you're not familiar with them. Some of these are full-time salaried positions. Others are just paid singers. But it's still really important for the future of choral singing that we have these opportunities for people to continue to sing at that high level professionally, just like our orchestral counterparts. So Chanticleer was really the one that, in my mind, inspired these other groups. Now, musically, it's hard to underestimate or understate their musical importance. Even though they have this initial focus on medieval and Renaissance music, they also have embraced new music, commissioning over 70 different composers and premiering over 90 new works. They've won 2 Grammy Awards. And just to give you a sense of their typical year, they perform around 110 performances a year. Obviously not during the pandemic. But normally that's how many. And that's not all the same, right? For a while, they'll be touring in the fall with a program. They're very well known for their Christmas programs here in Chicago at Fourth Pres. They come here every year. And so they do, their December schedule is absolutely nuts. They're performing, 26 concerts in 24 days in 15 states or something crazy. And then they do international touring, and it's a really exciting group to be in, but it's busy. Their music directors are very interesting. They've had 6 in their history, and 4 of them have been members of the ensemble at one point or another. I have here pictured first Louis Botto, the founder, 1979, who sang with the group and was a music director for many years, and then eventually stepped off stage and continued to work for the ensemble in an administrative capacity until he died. Joseph Jennings is the one who really then took Chanticleer and brought it to that next level and secured its place on the international stage. He served for many, many years, and not only was the music director, but wrote many pieces for the group too. Now, I can identify a little bit with Tim Keller, who's their new music director as of this year. So I'm sure he's trying to figure out what to do during this pandemic as well. But I'm sure they're in good hands with him. Now, the piece that we're going to listen to tonight is not a Renaissance and medieval piece. I thought about doing that, but we're going to listen to their performance of Shenandoah. This is a beloved piece by many of us. I've sung and conducted the James Erb arrangement many, many times, and I love that one. But the Chanticleer version is very unique because what they do is they kind of mash up two different arrangements, one by Marshall Bartholomew and the other by James Erb. And it's really effective and it fits their voices well. This performance was recorded this November during the pandemic, and you'll notice they're outside, kind of in a pavilion and socially distanced. But I think it really captures their tone very well. And I think there's something about this ensemble, even though they're all male, they're singing SATB music, and it's just a really unique sound. So I hope you enjoy this one too. I hope this has been a fun way to spend an evening together, and I invite you to come back next week for our final session of CMS University. I'm really excited about it. It's our final Inside the Score presentation, where I'll be talking about one of my very, very favorite pieces of all time, Handel's Messiah. I'm sure many of you love that piece as well. Not only will I be talking all about the historical context of the piece and some of its reception history, but I'll be joined by soprano Michelle Arizaga, who I'll do a short interview with about her work as a soloist and how she might prepare Messiah. And then you'll have the opportunity to ask her questions as well. So if you aren't yet registered, please do so. You can do that by clicking the Eventbrite link in the video description below. It'd be great to have you back. I also want to invite you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, share it with a friend or family member, and remember, if you ever missed a session, not that we're taking any attendance here at CMS University, but if you did miss a session, you can always go back and watch it on our channel. Finally, I want to talk to you tonight about a very exciting upcoming event, and that is our annual gala, which is coming up on Saturday, April 24th. I know many of us are excited for the spring and the promise of what lies ahead for us. It's been a very different kind of year for CMS. The pandemic really robbed us of what we love doing, which is sharing our music in performance with audiences. But I'm glad to say that CMS University has been a tremendous success. Now, with things opening up again, our future is looking quite bright. We're wrapping up the season of CMS University and are anticipating performing again. But we have to remember that all of this, what's happened this year, has been made possible by the funds raised during our annual gala benefit last year. This happens every spring. And last year, we were very fortunate that even though we weren't able to be together, this right when the pandemic had really started, we raised over $50,000 last year, all without getting dressed up or even having to venture out of our homes. So here are some things that I want to remind you about that you can do to support our future. There are only 12 days left, less than 2 weeks, to register for this year's gala. So please mark your calendar for Saturday, April 24th at 7 o'clock p.m. And remember, you don't have to get dressed up. You can attend at home from the couch in your blue jeans with a glass of your favorite beverage, maybe a glass of wine, and you can enjoy the evening right there. As a reminder, it is free to attend this live online event. There's no registration cost. The evening will include a silent auction, the premiere of our latest virtual choir production, a special musical performance by Michelle Arizaga, and much more. And all the funds raised at the benefit will help offset our operating costs, as well as our continuing community activities, such as things like CMS University. Now, last year, despite the pandemic, over 200 people participated, with over 50% of the attendees making a direct donation to CMS. Our silent auction drew over about a third of the participants, and that means that you have a wonderful opportunity to get a great deal on some fantastic items. All the while, you're supporting CMS. To register, it's really simple. When you close out of the live stream tonight, or whenever you're watching this, head over to chicagomastersingers.org and click on the A New Era Together banner to register. That's the image pictured below me here. This way you won't miss out on any of the fun, the music, and of course the opportunity to support your favorite chorus. Again, check out chicagomastersingers.org and click the banner. I'll look forward to seeing you on the 24th. Our moment of Zen tonight, I actually kind of teased it earlier. You might not have realized that, but we're going to be listening to a great performance of Sicut Cervus by Palestrina, his most famous motet, and for good reason. It's a lovely, lovely piece. This performance is by the Gesualdo Six in Ely Cathedral, and I love their attention to detail in this performance. They really capture the unmeasured quality of Renaissance music, right? We all know now that it doesn't have bar lines, and they capture that very well. And this piece is just such a perfect example of Palestrina's style. The rising and falling lines, the arching melodies, the careful control of dissonance, all the while having clear text setting. It's a real masterclass in counterpoint. I hope you enjoy this. Thanks again for joining me this evening. I'll look forward to seeing you next week for another session of CMS University. Until then, I hope you're doing well. Take care and have a good evening.